Hey guys, it's Joe with East Carolina Beer and Brewing.
Nick here.
And today we're putting the brewing in our name. So we have the first run on the Anvil Foundry all-grain brew-to-bag system. And we're actually using a recipe from Joe at American Brewmaster in Raleigh. Thanks for the recipe recommendation. So we've got basically a hazy IPA using all El Dorado hops. We've got 11 pounds of 2-row malt, 8 ounces of Carapils, 8 ounces of Crystal 40, and then 4 ounces of acidulated malt. So this is going to mash at 150 for 60 minutes, and then there's going to be a 60-minute boil with 6 hop additions throughout. Actually, the last one is a dry hop for 7 days. So without further ado, we've got our mash water, our strike water up to temp. We're going to go ahead and put the grains in. All right, so let's get the lid off here. So I'll open it up, set it off, and Nick can start pouring in our grain, and I'll keep stirring it continuously so that way we don't get any dough balls formed.
Get my glasses fogged up.
Nice warm water on such a cool day.
Smell them good already.
So far we're going pretty good. We've got only 12 pounds of grain today, so not a huge grain bill. I'm starting to feel it here. Just want to make sure you keep stirring constantly so that way you don't get any big clumps of the grain. You can see our temp starting to drop a little bit as we're adding that in. Actually going to pop the temp down to 150 right now. So just a note, with the system we're running it at 120 volts right now. It does have the option for 240, but I just don't have a hookup out here yet, so I'm just running off standard 120 voltage. It seems to be going good so far. So what did we do? So we're a little higher than our expected temp. We're still at 154, so we're supposed to drop a little bit. So our strike temp was a little bit high at 159. Next time I might adjust it down a touch. Make sure I get it nice and stirred in, and then we'll get the recirculation pump going. All right, so we've got our grain in, all stirred in. We're gonna go ahead and put in the perforated disc here. So I did get the optional recirculation kit. So it comes with this perforated disc, and then the Anvil pump, the recirculation pump, and some hoses here. So what we do for that is we'll go ahead and put that in, put the lid back on, and then I've got my little pump set up over here. So I'm going to just, actually I'm gonna pull it out. I'm gonna put this in there like that, and then we'll kick the pump on and check to see how fast it's going. Just make sure we don't want it to go too fast because we don't want to get a stuck part. I gotta turn the valve on first. Second time I've done that. So we got a little bit of aggressive flow, so let's crank this in to drop the rate there. So that probably should be good. We'll just come back and check on it a little bit, make sure we're not drying things out too much. But that's it, so now we gotta let it go for an hour. In the Anvil manual, it does say to stir it every 15 minutes or so, getting the top 2/3 just to make sure the grain bed sits up nicely and you're not disturbing it on the bottom too much. But all right, we'll see in a little bit when it's time for the boil. All right, so we're back after the hour mash. We did, just a reminder, 1 hour at 150 degrees. We came out about every 15 minutes to break the mash so that we stirred up basically the top 2/3 of it, just to make sure things were flowing nicely, and they did. So we turned the recirculation pump off. Now we're gonna pull the grain basket out, let it drain, and then we've got our sparge water ready, about a gallon or so, just to pour over it and get the last residual sugars out of there before we start the boil. So now once this all drains out, we'll use our sparge water to go ahead and start the sparge. But in the meantime, I'm going to crank the power up to boil. With this system, if you just set it to 212, it'll automatically start in boil mode, which basically cranks up the power to 100%. Gets it rolling. So now we're adding the sparge water in. It's about 175 degrees per the recommendations from them. So basically this is just extra water to go ahead and rinse out any of the residual sugars from the beer. Or not from the beer, but from the grains. So that way we can get as concentrated a wort as we can. We're just about out here. So they recommend about a gallon of sparge water. We're just letting it drain slowly so it doesn't disturb the grain bed too much. Alright, so that's that. So now we'll let it continue to drain. We've got the temperature controller set up to boil, so we'll let it go until it gets to that boil, and then at that point we'll start doing the hop additions for the recipe. So we'll see you then. Alright, so now it's time for the first hop addition. We've reached the boil. I'm going to take the lid off for the rest of the time now, just so we don't get any buildup of any unwanted compounds. So our first hop addition is 0.25 ounces of El Dorado at 60 minutes. So this is the start of our boil. So we'll see you in 15 minutes for the next hop addition.
All right, so time for that 0.25 ounces of the hops. So we're gonna add those in now for the next increment, and we'll go ahead and let that cook some more. We'll be back in another 15.
Final 2-ounce addition at 5 minutes left. And while we're at it, we're going to throw in the wort chiller to give that a little sanitizing since we've only got 5 minutes left in the boil. Alright, and I'm going to pop the lid partially back on, and then we'll hook up the pump, and we'll get the pump running because we want to sanitize the line so that way we can use it to transfer it into our fermenter. Get the flow open a little bit here.
5 minutes remain.
Alright, so now we've got the wort chiller in. We are starting to cool it. We're going to continuously stir it the whole time till we get it down to about 70, 75 degrees. So once we get it down to that temperature, we can transfer it to the fermenter and then pitch our yeast. And then when we get to the end, we'll try to give it a nice little whirlpool spin, so that way we can centrifuge all of the hops and trub that we have in there, so they'll settle at the bottom and hopefully we don't pick them up when we're transferring to our fermenter. The nice thing about this is it does have an adjustable arm inside, so that way we can twist it so that we're not picking up all the stuff at the bottom when we're transferring to the pump. Alright, so now I'm going to give it a real good stir just to try to centrifuge everything towards the center of the kettle, so that way all the hops and trub kind of settle out before we're transferring it over to our fermentation vessel. Alrighty, so we just have a 6-gallon carboy here. Sanitation solution. So I'm going to start with the valve turned up to the side here, so that way we don't get any of the stuff we don't want. I'm going to pop this in, and I'm going to let the pump transfer it over, so that way we should get some good aeration and get enough oxygen in there for the yeast to reproduce with. So let's kick the pump on. Got my valve closed, but I'm going to open that first. Alright. Now we're transferring over some wort. I can tell you we're looking pretty hazy right now. So the foam in here is some of the sanitizer solution. Alright, so we got our 5 gallons in, and it is quite hazy. Definitely do not have a clear wort on this one. Where's my scissors? So I've got my sanitized yeast packet. I've got my sanitized scissors. If I wanted to be more ambitious, I could have made a yeast starter. But being the first all grain batch we're doing, we just figured we'd go with the standard method here. So we just got some Safe Val USO5 here. Get this in the beer, and we'll give it a good shake to aerate it. All right, yeast is in. Take my bone, put it in here, and then we'll give it the old shake. So we shake it so that way we can get some oxygen into the wort. Oxygen at any point other than this is bad. It leads to oxidation of beer, but you need some oxygen for the yeast to metabolize, to create the alcohol, to ferment the beer. So we want to make sure that we get plenty of air into the wort. Later, when we're transferring the beer to the keg, we're going to want to make sure that we don't get any air into it if we can. Some people use pressurized transfers, but usually I'm not that high tech, so I'll just generally try to run it down the side and create as little splashing as possible when I'm transferring it. Well, we'll just give it about 60 seconds of this. Make sure we get a nice bit of air worked in there. All right, with that, let's get our airlock in. Well done. Here we go. Beer brewed. Now it's time to let the yeast do its magic. All right. Well, thanks for watching. A little bit of a messy first brew day, but we got there. First all grain batch. Nick and I got it done. We'll see how the beer turns out in a few weeks. Maybe we'll do a little review on it. Let you know if we triumphed or completely failed. Thanks.